been a few days since I've given you one of my vlogs, so I thought I'd just point the camera directly at me today and just give you some updates. I'm not going to talk retail on this particular channel. I've now got to have 3 channels running. I've got my retail channel, which is linked to my retail website. I've got my biography channel, which is where I'm putting my memoirs together, and that's going in a separate channel. And I've got this new channel that's really talking general things happening here in the UK, happening in other parts of the world that I know very well and lived in, and this is what I'm actually want to talk to you about here on this channel today, and also introduce other people and other things that are happening around the world as well. One of the main topics on my agenda, really, to get across to my friends and colleagues out there is really what's been going on in South Africa sort of over the last year or so. You know, this whole plight of the South African white farmers, which has been absolutely horrific, to be quite honest with you. It's absolutely horrific. And obviously I've heard stories that have come through mainly on YouTube. I haven't heard so much come through in the national press or on national media channels. There's been the odd thing covering, but it's been very low profile and it hasn't been too repetitive. But there's been quite a lot coming through on YouTube, particularly from Lauren Southern, who has been doing some fantastic features on what's been going on in South Africa, and particularly in covering the plight of South African white farmers very recently. And I'm going to share some of her coverage with you now. But to me, it's an absolutely, it's a shocking state of affairs, and I just hope. I mean, I've heard what Cyril Ramaphosa has had to say regarding the, removing of land from the whites now, and allocating it out to black people to use whatever they do. And I just think it's, well, as a UK taxpayer who sends money to the ANC government to support them in their changing requirements, and I know other countries like the United States of America, other countries in Europe also donate plenty of money to the South African government to assist them in their reforms and helping them with their activities. But when I hear and read stories like this, and when you see this story now, I mean, it just disgusts me. I mean, apartheid, yes, it was ugly. It wasn't nice, and we all agree with that. That it's good, it's gone. I mean, that's absolutely 100%. But what I hear coming out of the media in South Africa and out of people's mouths that I know in South Africa who live in South Africa, I mean, what I see is absolutely shocking. And I just hope this is minority, and it's being whipped up by media thugs, for want of a better word. Because if it isn't, well, all I can say is, South Africa is going to go like Zimbabwe, only worse. Only worse, because I think there will be a real civil unrest and divide, and I think there will be civil war. Now, I hope that's not going to happen. I hope that's not the case. I mean, when I hear things as well from that minister in Australia now saying, to all the South African farmers, we'll make proposals to get visas shifting quickly and get people into Australia. Well, that's great. I mean, I think Australia is in a great position to do that. If it can do that, and if it has got the support of the rest of the Australian government, and it has got the support of the Australian people, that's fantastic. Because I think South African farmers farming in Australia would be great. But South African farmers are really needed in South Africa. You know, and South African farmers need to be in South Africa doing what they do well, farming, producing food. Producing food is more important than producing ways of selling food, in my opinion. It's where the whole process starts, and we need more people producing food. Sorry, I'm going onto my high horse now. I'm sitting here in the UK, where we don't produce any more than 60, probably less than 60% of what we can eat now. We produce probably less than that now. It's probably nearer 50%. The rest we have to bring in. We have to rely on other countries farming for our food requirements, you know, be it animal feeds or be it actual food for ourselves. We need to have other countries supplying us with food. That's as crazy as it may be. And as you know, most recently, with what we've got this whole issue going on with the Kremlin at the moment, we don't even have gas reserves, and we get most of our gas from Russia at the moment. So if Putin decides he's going to turn off the tap, and we've got a cold snap coming at the end of this week, yeah, thank you very much. You know, we've really looked after ourselves well when it comes to that. I mean, the UK has been absolutely diabolical. We had a storage facility that was constructed back in the 70s for holding reserves of gas. Now, about a year ago, that was shut down because it was becoming unsafe. It needed certain things done to it to maintain it and keep it safe. And you know, the government decided they were going to close it because they would then rely on the pipeline gas that was coming in out of Northern Europe, etc. But now that's fantastic, isn't it? You know, so now we're in a situation with, we've got Mr. Putin, why did you do this? But Mr. Putin is going to be in a very strong position to just turn our gas supplies off if he then wants to. I know it then has an impact on him as well, because he then doesn't get the revenue for the gas that he's sending us. But the point I'm making is, you know, I sit here in a country, yes, it's economically strong in terms of what it does, particularly through the city, through its financial institutions and what it produces. But it relies on the rest of the world to give it its bread and butter, quite honestly. Now, South Africa is like a bread basket. It's a large enough country with its population to feed itself, and could possibly feed half of Africa along with it. It's got that capability. And part of that capability is its white farmers. And if the white farmers go, the country will soon go down the tubes. I've got no doubt about that. It will not be able to produce the food quantities and qualities. It will have to rely more and more on imports. But I just don't think about just then the farmers go. I mean, you know, what about the other commercial industries there as well? When is it going to stop then? You know, people start walking in and taking over farmland. They're going to start walking in and taking over other businesses as well, and your homes, and everyone's. The whole thing has got to stop. The line's got to be drawn. It's got to stop. Common sense has got to be brought into play with this. Yes. White colonialism was there at one point in time. Yes, we know about all those things. And look at the rest of Africa. But does South Africa want to become like the rest of Africa? Do black people in South Africa want it to become like Zimbabwe? Do they want it to become like Zambia? Or do they want it to become like other countries that have had to go through the same process? You know, I understand the Western world finds it difficult to say what I'm saying at the moment. I understand that, you know, because when apartheid was there, I know the UK was one of the few countries that actually still flew British Airways in there every day. In fact, it was one of the only planes flying in there other than South African Airways at one stage. But they also opened up to the whole process of freeing Nelson Mandela and you know, filling Wembley Stadium to perform rock concerts in support of the ANC and everything else. So they did their bit there, you know, and no problem with that. I think that's fine. We all support that. We support that. But I can't support what's happening now. You know, the ANC government have been in power since, what, 1994. You know, that's a long time ago. And what I hear coming on now, you know, people have still been generating a reasonable income out of South Africa through their hard works, efforts and energy. The sort of noises I hear coming out of there now are shocking. And let's, you know, the corruption with Zuma is park that. That's nothing. Cyril Ramaphosa has got a tough job on his hands. I know he's got an election coming up soon. And I know he's got to say the right things to get his votes. I understand all those things as well. It's not an easy one. I understand all that. But let's be quite clear on this. Unfortunately, there are more black, impoverished people in South Africa and in the world, not just in South Africa, in the world, compared with white-skinned people. That is just a fact. And it's not going to change overnight. And it's not going to change by adopting the methods that are being suggested by the ANC government as it stands at the moment. Okay, here's a video off YouTube from Lauren Southern, who's been doing a trip around South Africa. She's in the process of putting a full documentary together. I'm just putting this video on for those, not for those of you in South Africa, obviously you know all these stories. It's more for the benefit of, so I can inform my friends and colleagues throughout the world, in the Middle East and in the Far East, who may not understand fully all the stories of everything that is going on. And that's why I put this on there. So anyway, here it is.
While I've been in South Africa, I've heard a number of heartbreaking stories, but there is one that struck me on a very personal level. I met Janine on my journey through the Karoo, where I've been listening to some horrific accounts of murder, rape, and robbery. Like many other white farming families, Janine's was torn apart in one of South Africa's daily farm attacks. I sat down to hear her story firsthand.
We are now third generation on this farm, third generation. My grandfather farmed here until he died of a heart attack, and then my dad inherited this portion and his brother inherited the top farm, which my dad eventually over the years bought back, so it's been in the family for more than 100 years. I grew up here, myself and my 3 siblings grew up here, went to school in Graafnet, which I'm sure you came through, and then went to study in Cape Town, and yeah, it was always our dream to come back, and it was always the intention to come back, not under these circumstances though. My dad was living alone, my mum was in an Alzheimer's home, so this is quite hard. Because we were so safe here, there was actually no handle on the back door. It was always open, and this security gate was right here, so my dad heard the knock on the door, opened the door, was shot in the stomach. Managed to get to the phone. Yeah. Phone my aunt. Said, I've been shot in the stomach. Put the phone down. Phoned our neighbour. And while he said to Jeremy, I've been shot. And while he was on the phone to Jeremy, Jeremy heard the shots. Just kept going. And there was one shot that ricocheted against that wall. All the time my dad's being shot. Back, arms, legs. And my dad slumped over this chair. Slumped forward over this chair, and he was shot in the back of the head here. Just execution style, in the back of the head. So it was 8, they found 8 cartridges, but 6, he was shot 6 times. So this is where my dad died. He was killed. Okay. I know, for what, you know, for what? He was a good man, he was an awesome man, and to shoot somebody 6 times, execution style. Can I take a breather, please? it gets easier, and it never does, unfortunately. My dad was, and Louis will back me up, and everybody will back me up, my dad was the most loving person. He would literally give you the shirt of his back to help you. There were so many farmers, and Louis knows, that were battling, that my dad will say, here, use my bucket to get on your feet. Do that. And to cold-bloodedly just kill him. So all they took, about 20,000 rand in the safe. They took that, helped themselves to food in the fridge, and then hit the road.
Janine's story is not especially remarkable, nor is it out of the ordinary. What is remarkable is her resilience. Like many of her people, Janine has returned to the farm where her father was killed to rebuild her life in the face of unspeakable horror.
He's killed 2 people. He's destroyed 2 families. And you've got 15 years. With these 15 years, he can sit for six years and he'll come back. And he'll probably come and kill us or kill another farmer because he knows how easy it is, that he's got away with it. So justice hasn't been served yet.
These kind of attacks are not uncommon in South Africa. In fact, the statistics show a white farming family is attacked every single day.
Just getting worse and worse and worse. And they're targeting the vulnerable, you know, the 65 plus. That's who they're targeting. And it is just going to get worse. And then the farmers are going to leave. They're going to have no choice but to leave.
Are the government doing anything about this?
No. Nothing. The government have done nothing. I haven't heard from a government official, not once, not at all, no phone call, nothing. So what the intention is, it remains mystery to us.
Janine and other families like hers have told me they are not convinced these brutal attacks are just random acts, but that the South African government may very well be complicit in allowing them to happen as they continue their political agenda to drive out white farmers and take their land.
With overwhelming agreement, unanimous agreement, has resolved that the expropriation of land without compensation should be amongst the mechanisms available to government to give effect to land reform and redistribution. That is what is important.
While watching the crime rates skyrocket against white farmers and the government's rhetoric get more radical, I can only help but wonder how much worse is this going to get in the coming years.
Very sad, yes. I don't think there's anything more to say. All right, talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.